Okay, guys. So it's close to the new year. A lot of people want to lose weight. And we here at Healthy Gamer are here to help you do that. So I'm Dr. K, one of the co-founders of Healthy Gamer. And today I want to talk to you guys about some of the scams of the weight loss industry and frankly, why it's hard to lose weight. And at Healthy Gamer, our main goal is to teach people how stuff works, right? So my hope is that by explaining a little bit about how weight loss works, some of the science behind it, and also a little bit about how the weight loss industry works, we can empower you guys to actually achieve some of your goals and live sort of a healthier, happier life, okay? So we're gonna jump in with talking a little bit about the diet industry. So I want you guys to just think about this for a second. So the diet industry has been growing. The wellness industry is growing. They're now multi-billion-dollar industries. We have a lot of advances in medical science. A lot of people are studying weight loss and obesity and all these kinds of things. We have all these qualified professionals like nutritionists, endocrinologists, medical doctors, personal trainers. There's so many people out there that their job is to help you lose weight. And we have a whole industry that's spending billions of dollars on helping you lose weight. And what's happening across the world? People are getting fatter, right? So obesity is actually on the rise. And it blows my mind that this is actually happening right now. That despite all of the advances in medical science, despite this gigantic industry, people overall are still getting more and more obese and more unhealthy. And so the question is why is that, right? So what's going on here? And can we understand a little bit about the science of weight loss, which may explain why actually going on crash diets doesn't actually help you lose weight. It actually potentially makes it harder for you to lose weight. And we'll dig into the science behind that. So let's start by talking a little bit about crash diets, right? So you guys may have heard of things like, 20, 30 years ago, it was the South Beach diet. Then people were doing this thing when I was in college called the Master Cleanse, which is when you drink a bunch of lemonade with cayenne pepper in it for 5 days. And nowadays everyone's low carb, paleo, everyone's got these kind of new diets, Atkins diet, whatever. And the goal of these diets is to kind of help you lose weight in sort of a drastic manner. And we see this a lot where people are oh, I need to get in shape for the summer. I need to get in shape for a wedding. So I want to lose 10 pounds in 15 days. And I heard about this person that did it. They posted it all over their social media and Instagram. So that's what I'm going to do too. And so the diet industry loves to sell you these kinds of weight loss programs, right? They say, stick with this diet and you'll lose this amount of weight in this amount of time. But the reason that all of the diet industry exists is because none of those really work. And what do I mean by that? I mean, just think about that for a second. If these solutions actually worked, then the industry wouldn't be there, right? Everyone would be in shape. And so if the industry is actually growing and growing and growing, it doesn't mean that their methods are effective. It actually means the exact opposite, that their methods, I know this sounds really bizarre, but the more that people invest in the diet industry, the more obese we're getting. So is there actually a scientific reason behind that? And I know it sounds absolutely crazy, but there actually is, and there's actually really strong data that going on crash diets actually causes you to get fatter. And the main scientific theory that's behind this is something called set point theory. And what set point theory basically says is that your body has an ideal weight that it homeostatically tries to maintain. So your body actually has an ideal weight that it is going to try to maintain. And if you try to lose weight, it'll actually fight against you. And if you go over your set weight, it'll actually start to lose weight. And I know it sounds really weird, but let's just think about this for a second. So let's say you and your friend may not be the same weight, even though you guys eat roughly the same stuff, right? Most human beings eat around 2,000 calories a day. And it's not like people who weigh 300 pounds eat twice as many calories as people who weigh 150 pounds. And so if we look at a population that's roughly eating the same amount of calories, how do we explain some people being way heavier and some people being way lighter? Well, it turns out that set point theory perfectly explains that. Each of these people, all of us, have this internal calculator that tells us how much we should weigh. And so that's the idea behind set point theory. So the first study that I want to talk to you guys a little bit about is from the Journal of Nutrition. And it basically explains the concept of set points, which is sort of this intrinsic biological capacity to stay at a particular weight. So let's try to look at what happens when people actually go on a crash diet. So when we lose a lot of weight, our internal body is like, oh my God, we're losing a bunch of weight. We better compensate for all this weight loss because otherwise we're going to end up in starvation. And so one of the things that it does is it changes something called your basic metabolic rate. It changes the way that you expend energy, and it tries to conserve that energy. So basically, in a gaming analogy, what this means is that like we're losing a bunch of weight, and then our body is saying, oh my God, weight loss is OP. So let's nerf weight loss, and let's change the way that our body holds on to energy. And I know this sounds absolutely crazy, but that's exactly what happens. So there's a great study from the New England Journal of Medicine, which is one of the most prestigious and well-respected journals in the world, that basically talks a little bit about how when you lose weight, your body compensates by slowing down its metabolism. And so basically what it says is that this weight loss is too drastic. Let's conserve our calories. Let's hold on to weight as much as possible. And the other thing that's really, really scary about this is that there's another study in the American Journal of Nutrition that suggests that this compensatory mechanism that causes your body to hold on to calories when you go through a drastic period of weight loss actually lasts even if you gain the weight back. So what that means is that if you go through a drastic period of weight loss, your body thinks you're starving, and it starts to actually make changes to your metabolism to cause you to hold on to calories in a more desperate way. It tries to compensate. And even if you start to gain weight again, those changes to your body, those periods of starvation, will actually remain, and you'll actually start to be potentially even go above your set point and set a new set point that is actually higher than your old weight. And so what this really means, sounds absolutely crazy, is that if you do drastic weight loss, your body will try to keep you conserving more calories, and you could actually wind up at a higher weight than you used to. And that's actually what set point theory tells us. So let's think about that for just a second. So why does our body do that? And it turns out that it's actually evolutionary. So if we go through a period of starvation, the organisms that were able to be more calorie efficient after those periods of starvation were the ones that were more likely to survive future periods of starvation. So our body basically learns from this period of enforced starvation and says, we better hold on to weight as quickly as possible or as severely as possible. And so the problem with this is that if we kind of switch back to the diet industry for a second, the diet industry is really interesting because what it does is it helps us lose weight for a brief period of time. And then what inevitably happens is we gain all the weight back, right? And then something very, very important happens is that we don't blame our physiology or the diet industry for that. What we do is we say, oh my God, I lack discipline. I'm lazy. I lost the weight and I just needed to stick with the diet. If only I had stuck with the diet, then I would have kept the weight off. Whereas in reality, what's going on is, sure, you may have deviated from the diet because they're not really sustainable. But then we kind of walk out of that scenario thinking that the diet worked, but we didn't. And that's not really what's going on. Actually, what's going on is that the crash diet that you went on is actually changing your metabolism to gain weight afterward. So it's kind of like it's a huge scam and a huge point of misunderstanding. And so another thing just about a set point theory, so a lot of people when they diet with the idea that, okay, so I'm eating 2,000 calories a day right now. I'm not gaining weight. I'm not losing weight. So if I go on a crash diet and I lose 15 pounds and I go back to my regular diet, I'll stay at that new lower weight. I won't gain weight. I won't lose weight. But that doesn't really work because exactly what happens is set point theory sort of kicks in and says, oh my God, we've lost too much weight. So even if you eat the same amount that you're eating right now, you'll actually gain weight and may even end up at a higher weight than you started at, which is what's really scary. So you can go on a crash diet. Nowadays, they're kind of like these no carb diets. You can even kind of do all this kind of stuff, and you can sort of end up with the idea that discipline is the problem. Oh, you should have stuck with it. But the real truth is that if you go on these crash diets and if you do this really drastic stuff, then kind of no matter what happens, you're going to sort of gain your weight back. So what ends up happening is that you start to view yourself as a failure rather than the diet as a failure. And when you gain it back, it becomes this abusive cycle of losing weight and gaining weight. And each time, you think, oh, the diet worked, but I didn't work. So then you go back to the diet industry, you buy more books, you go on another crash diet. As you go on your second crash diet, your set point actually increases further. And as you start to introduce even a healthy, normal diet, you notice that the weight actually goes back to where you used to be, which is what most people's experience with the diet industry is. So then we kind of get to the main question, which is, okay, what do we do about it, right? So how do we lose weight? If crash diets don't work, if the diet industry doesn't work, how is it possible to actually lose weight? And it turns out that there are a bunch of solutions, and this is kind of what we're going to get into. There are a lot of things that you can do once you understand what your physiology is to actually lead to sustained weight loss, right? So we don't want to institute something where our body says, oh my God, this weight loss is too OP, nerf this, this is OP, like let's correct it. What we want to do is sustained weight loss solutions through sustained action. And there are actually really good ways to do that, really good ways to understand your physiology that lead to constant and relatively easily sustainable changes to your weight. So don't crash diet because it's actually going to make it harder to lose weight. And there's a great paper from American psychologists that sort of digs into why like losing weight will actually cause you to binge more. So here are just a couple of things that you can do. So the first thing to understand is that sustained weight loss is gained through sustained action. You need to change your diet on a daily basis. It can't be a temporary thing. The good news is that you may not even need to change it much. There are small, sustainable things that you can do that will actually change your weight in a relatively efficient way. So there are all kinds of interesting solutions that we can do based on our understanding of science. And a good example of this is flax seeds. So flax seeds actually increase our leptin sensitivity. And so people may ask, okay, what is leptin? So in our body, we have two hormones, leptin and ghrelin. Leptin is the hormone that tells us, hey, we're feeling full. And ghrelin is the hormone that says, hey, we're hungry, we need to eat more. So what we find in people who are overweight is that they are actually resistant to leptin. And so what that means is that there's a hormone that is telling you, hey, we've had enough food, but you are resistant to that signal, so you're not really receiving that message. And flax seeds have actually been shown to increase leptin sensitivity. So what that means is that if you're eating a particular meal and you add, let's say, like a teaspoon of flax seeds on top, literally that meal's capacity to make you feel full goes up with that teaspoon of flax seeds. So there are a lot of simple things that you can do that will sort of play with that hormonal balance and allow you to actually feel more full. And your body will start to tell you, hey, we actually don't need to eat as much because your leptin is actually functioning as normal. Other things that we can do are actually increased sun exposure. So there's actually a great paper that sort of explores, this is from the medical journal, Medical Hypotheses, that explores how obesity and vitamin D deficiency are actually linked. And there's some good evidence behind this, but some of it is also theoretical. But literally, this can be as simple as exposing yourself to sunlight. And so sun exposure may actually help lead to weight loss through correcting vitamin D mechanisms. And if that sounds really bizarre, just think for a second about how your body functions. And there's a really simple sort of causation between sunlight exposure and weight gain. And it's simply that people in northern climates are less exposed to sunlight. People in northern climates tend to have heavier winters. And in the winter time, you have less access to food. So evolutionarily, what our body does is says, oh, if there's not a whole lot of sunlight, we need to store calories. So you can do something as simple as just getting some sunlight, which actually produces vitamin D and is more likely to make you lose weight. So these are just a couple of the solutions that we're introducing you guys with today. And there are actually a lot of other solutions that will empower you to get control of your weight and sort of lead to a sustained weight loss. And so I really don't want y'all to blame yourself for your weight loss. Just understand how your physiology works and then start to institute changes that will lead to sort of a sustained and healthy weight. And that's really what we're here about. So I hope that was helpful. Thanks a lot and good luck in the new year from Dr. K and Healthy Gamer.